2023 first overall pick Bryce Young getting benched. Dave Canales said after the game, after their massive loss against the Los Angeles Chargers, that Bryce Young was the quarterback of the Carolina Panthers. And less than 24 hours later, the decision was made that no, it'll be Andy Dalton moving forward for the foreseeable future. After 18 of 26 against the Chargers for 84 yards and an interception, it was honestly kind of hard to watch Bryce Young operate. There were a lot of throws that were being made. He was actually one of the lowest pressured quarterbacks in week 2, and he's still making some very, very poor decisions. But it's not looking good for him so far. He's 2-16 over his career thus far. He's getting benched for Andy Dalton in only year 2. So I would like to know, do you believe, because you had Bryce Young going number 1 overall in our mock drafts last year, do you think that this experiment with Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers already in year 2 is already over?
He's looking like a bust. Yeah, I have to admit it. He looks like a bust. I picked him to go number 1. He did go number 1 last year. Everyone thought that was a good pick, and no one was really criticizing it that much. I'm sure the Panthers are kicking themselves. Why didn't we pick C.J. Stroud? Why didn't we do it? Look what a great quarterback he's turning out to be. Bryce Young, just the opposite. I mean, his QBR so far, in this game this weekend, his QBR is 6.4. Huh? I mean, that's pretty bad. They lost 26-3, and he's 2-16, as you mentioned. Carolina traded up 8 spots with Chicago to draft him number 1 last year. They gave up 2 first-round picks. They gave up a great wide receiver and more. And now they're 0-2 this year. They were 1-2 and 15 last year. And now they're 0-2 this year, and they've lost by a combined 73-13 this year. I mean, that's horrible. And Canales, he said he supported Young right after the game, and then 24 hours later, as you said, Young is out and Andy Dalton is in. Apparently, the owner didn't have any say in this, but the general manager, Dan Morgan, executive vice president Brad Tillis were part of the discussion, but Canales says ultimately it was his decision to sit Young. You know, Andy Dalton, he said he can't wait for the opportunity to prove himself, but he also empathized with the Young. He said, when I came here, I wasn't sure I was going to get another opportunity to start again. I'm excited about what's ahead. It's a tough situation. I've been on both sides of it, and it's hard on everybody. But for me, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. Young, he didn't even know about it. He was blindsided by the news. He found out when everyone else found out about it, particularly after he got a vote of confidence from Canales after the game. Young had thanked him, Canales, for sticking with him. He says, Young said, I'm very blessed. Young said after the game, I'm grateful for this challenge. Not an ideal start, but God does everything for a reason. I have faith in that. And so I guess, I don't know, somebody was looking down from above to Canales and said, time to bench Bryce Young. And I can understand why they're doing it. He's really played so poorly. Dalton actually did play with them last year when Young had an ankle injury for one game after the 0-2 start. He completed 34 of 58 passes in that game for 361 yards and 2 touchdowns, but they lost 37-27 to Seattle. He doesn't expect that he'll throw that much against Las Vegas. They didn't plan to throw that much against Seattle. It's just there was nothing going in the running game. And as I mentioned, the Panthers invested a lot in Young, those 2 first-round picks, 23 and 24. 2018 round first pick, DJ Moore, sent to the Bears. Panthers signed Dalton a couple of years ago. He was 83 and 78 and 2 as a starter prior to the 2023 season. They wanted his experience and as a starter, coming off the bench, actually playing for the Bengals for a number of years, couldn't get much done in the playoffs. Coming off the bench for the Cowboys, the Bears, and the Saints. Canales says he gives him the best chance, Andy Dalton does, for moving forward. He had Young, his day against the Chargers was historically bad. He only passed for 84 yards. That's the fourth fewest in team history for a quarterback with at least 25 attempts. He became the third player in the past 20 seasons to average 4 or fewer yards per dropback in 4 straight starts. He's had 3 interceptions and no touchdowns in the 2 starts this season. And Canales said, though, Young would be the starter heading into the game against the Raiders, but he did change his mind. And Canales wouldn't go into the specifics of about the conversation. So, interesting developments in Carolina, and I'm actually not that surprised that they've made this move. Maybe Young standing over there watching on the sidelines for a while will help.
Well, I think already you could put your biggest bounce quarterback thing to rest, because there is I want to make this clear, 0% shot that Bryce Young will be the biggest bounce quarterback and have his stats boosted, the greatest amongst quarterbacks of last year. This is over. This is time of death, week 2 of the 2024-2025 season. This is it. Week 1. We're talking about worse than Jamarcus Russell level of bust. And we all agree, it could be Ryan Leaf or Jamarcus Russell. Those two are generally said to be the biggest busts, the biggest first overall bust in NFL history. Well, it looks like Bryce Young entered the category and may be the number 1 spot here. And is he in the most ideal situation? No. I would not say that this iteration, or even last year's iteration of the Carolina Panthers, is the most ideal. But we've seen quarterbacks go into non-ideal situations and not look this bad. I want to focus on Bryce Young specifically, because since entering in 2023 when he was drafted, these are his numbers. They're not good. In fact, they're dead last in everything. Record, completion percentage, passing yards a game, touchdown interception ratio, passer rating, last in everything. So to say that he's a good quarterback or has shown promise is not true at all. Because even when he's not pressured like he wasn't in week 2, he was pressured. There's a number out there on 2 of 28 dropbacks. That was the lowest in the NFL for week 2. He couldn't see the field. We have Adam Thielen extremely frustrated when he's wide open and Bryce Young doesn't see him. We have Deontay Johnson reportedly not even caring and not even listening to Bryce Young. They don't respect the kid, because has he earned the respect? No. His performance does not show that of a leader. It doesn't show that of a real game changer. It shows a guy who might be a little bit over his skis. That's what it looks like to me. It just looks like he is overwhelmed. But I also want to put some blame where it deserves on Panthers owner David Tepper. Because the way he has owned this team since coming in 2018, it's nearly impossible to be successful. And we've seen quarterbacks like Baker Mayfield, like even Sam Darnold, go to different teams with better ownership, with better coaching. And look at them now. They're undefeated so far they're undefeated so far. But think about this. Since he came in 2018, there's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 coaches. 7 coaches so far that David Tepper has hired and fired. Most of them, 2 of them actually, mid-season. Ron Rivera got fired mid-season. Matt Rule got fired mid-season. 3. Frank Reich, Matt Rule, and Ron Rivera all got fired mid-season, or around mid-season. They never finished out the year. The constant turnover of leadership, of coaching, normally in a business that has high turnover, that's generally not a good business. The Carolina Panthers are not a good business. There is a reason why. David Tepper's trying to find success in diamonds in the rough. Try to figure out what coach fits, and if it doesn't, let's get rid of him. There is no consistency. And when you're a young quarterback, that is probably the number one thing you need, a level of consistency. If you don't have it, the likelihood that something is going to go wrong, your development is going to hinder because of it, is extremely likely. And that's what we've seen so far, not even for rookie quarterbacks, not even for young quarterbacks. Even veterans are struggling underneath the Carolina Panthers system. And you bring up the draft picks, you're right. They flipped Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, and Brian Burns for 2 tight ends, an edge rusher, a cornerback, and Bryce Young, all of which have made little to no impact. And they also, from those trades, got 2 seconds, a third, a fourth, and 3/5. It cost them 2 firsts, 2 seconds, a fifth, plus Caleb Williams. So the chances that the Panthers are all of a sudden going to find, hope in Andy Dalton or even a level of success with Andy Dalton, I don't see as likely, but I will give him a little bit of credit because in that one appearance in 2023, he did have the highest passing yards for the entire 2023 season on the Panthers. Bryce Young never, in every game he played last year, never amounted to more passing yards than Andy Dalton did in one singular game, which that, on top of that, makes it worse for Bryce Young, showing that he might be a little bit over his skis when it comes to quarterbacking, at least for the Panthers. Now, could he go somewhere and succeed? That likelihood is probably significantly less than even a Daniel Jones.
Well, I'm not sure what team might want him. I mean, the fact that Carolina's offensive line is giving him good protection. He's not getting much pressure. He's just not finding the receivers and reading the defenses correctly. That's the key thing for a quarterback.
Yeah. Well, just take a look at every draft class since 2021. We might even push it to 2020, but let's go to 2021. Trevor Lawrence now doesn't look that great. I think he's 1-7 he might be 0-7 in the last 7 starts. Mac Jones, Trey Lance, Justin Fields actually kind of looks competent now, so he might actually emerge as the better quarterback amongst all those. But that draft class entirely is not great. You go to 2022, Kenny Pickett, first-round quarterback. He's a backup for the Eagles right now. 2023, C.J. Stroud is obviously hands down the best quarterback there. But Bryce Young looks like a complete bust.
Brock Purdy, last player drafted.
Right.
2 years ago. Last player in the draft.
Like, some of these quarterbacks that are in the first round are complete whiffs. And everybody knows quarterback is the most important position. Yeah. It is also probably the hardest to draft.
No, you never know. You never know. A lot of times the quarterbacks that they make out to be great are going to be world beaters and NFL stars and Hall of Fame quarterbacks. They don't amount to much of anything. In fact, the the Heisman Trophy winners generally have not done well, except maybe Baker Mayfield, who is having a great year so far.
Yeah, Baker's having an incredible year. But it looks like this experiment's already over. Even think about this: Dave Canales faced a lot of quarterbacks. Geno Smith looked great. Baker Mayfield looked great. Bryce Young can't get it going. Something is missing here. It can't be Dave Canales because look at some of the. Think about this: Geno Smith was considered a throwaway piece. He was considered a bust. Baker Mayfield considered a bust.
He's playing great this year.
He's playing great. Geno Smith has played he's played pretty well.
Over 300 yards against the Patriots.
Right, so he's played well so far.
The Patriots have a decent safeties and cornerbacks.
But like what I'm saying is Dave Canales clearly is not the missing link for Bryce Young. It may just be he isn't a good quarterback. And there's nothing like maybe Canales went into the film room and said, we can't salvage anything. There's nothing to work with.
I think the leadership told him enough. I think that's where it came from. I'm not sure the film made that much difference. He watched the whole game. He was standing there. He's the head coach watching the whole game. He had a front row seat for it. He saw everything that happened. So he knew how Bryce Young played. He told after the game, he said, Bryce is going to continue to be the starter.
And then less than 24 hours later,
he said, no, that's because it came from above, from him. His bosses told him, enough is enough. Let's try Andy Dalton. We don't want to lose every game this season.
Well, I think it's a serious chance that if Bryce Young stayed out there, let's say they play him the entire season, 0-17, that's very rare. I don't think any team has gone 0-17. They've gone 0-16. I think the latest team to do that was the Cleveland Browns, and then they drafted Baker Mayfield. But the Panthers would definitely be probably the only serious candidate for 0-17. I think Andy Dalton raises that a little bit, but still, Adam Thielen, very respected wide receiver, veteran. He was a very decent receiver with the Vikings and a great compliment to Justin Jefferson when Jefferson came over there. He's getting extremely frustrated. Deontay Johnson, he's had his blow-ups here and there, but not even giving Young the time of day. Like, there's no respect. Bryce Young has lost his talent around him.
Now, the reason I gave him the bounce quarterback for this year is because his results were so horrible last year. I just said it's a very low bar to jump over. Yeah. I figured he'd be able to improve more than anybody else off those stats. So far, I think they might even be worse.
No, they are. They are. No, it looks pretty bad. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, if you want to check out the full episode, make sure you click the I in the top right-hand corner right now. If you want to listen to this show anywhere you go, make sure you go to anchor.fm/The Harvey Hour or anywhere you get your podcasts.